जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन धारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदनंदन यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी राधा माधवा गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वरधारी यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यतीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी तीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शिल प्रभुपदा पदा शिल प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य शिल हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपकुनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी क्षेत्र धाम की गंगामय यमुनामय की तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की आमावेत भक्त वृंद की गौर प्रेमानंदे. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. सोऽप्येतया चरमया मनसो निवृत्त्या तस्मिन् महिम्न्यवसिता सुख-दुःख-बाह्ये हेतुत्वमप्यसति कर्तरि दुःखयोर्यत् स्वात्मन् विधत्त उपलब्ध-परात्मा-kāṣṭhaḥ सोऽप्येतया चरमया मनसो निवृत्त्या तस्मिन् महिम्न्यवसितः सुख-दुःख-बाह्ये हेतुत्वमप्यसति कर्तरि दुःखयोर्यत् स्वात्मन् विधत्त उपलब्ध-परात्मा-kāṣṭhaḥ सोऽप्येतया चरमया मनसो निवृत्त्या तस्मिन् महिम्न्यवसितः सुख-दुःख-बाह्ये हेतुत्वमप्यसति कर्तरि दुःखयोर्यत् स्वात्मन् विधत्त उपलब्ध-परात्मा-kāṣṭhaḥ. Repeat after me, please. सोऽप्येतया चरमया मनसो निवृत्त्या तस्मिन् महिम्न्यवसितः सुख-दुःख-बाह्ये हेतुत्वमप्यसति कर्तरि दुःखयोर्यत् स्वात्मन् विधत्त उपलब्ध-परात्मा-kāṣṭhaḥ सोऽप्येतया चरमया मनसो निवृत्त्या तस्मिन् महिम्न्यवसितः सुख-दुःख-बाह्ये हेतुत्वमप्यसति कर्तरि दुःखयोर्यत् स्वात्मन् विधत्त उपलब्ध-परात्मा-kāṣṭhaḥ सोऽप्येतया चरमया मनसो निवृत्त्या तस्मिन् महिम्न्यवसितः सुख-दुःख-बाह्ये हेतुत्वमप्यसति कर्तरि दुःखयोर्यत् स्वात्मन् विधत्त उपलब्ध-परात्मा-kāṣṭhaḥ सोऽप्येतया चरमया मनसो निवृत्त्या तस्मिन् महिम्न्यवसितः सुख-दुःख-बाह्ये हेतुत्वमप्यसति कर्तरि दुःखयोर्यत् स्वात्मन् विधत्त उपलब्ध-परात्मा-kāṣṭhaḥ. Please chant. sukha-duḥkha-bāhye. Svātman vidhatta upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. etayā caramayā manaso nivṛttyā. tasmin avasitaḥ sukha-duḥkha-bāhye. sva-ātman vidhatta para-ātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. Everybody chant. tasmin mahimny sukha-duḥkha-bāhye. hetutvam asati kartari duḥkhayor. sva-ātman vidhatta upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. etayā caramayā manaso nivṛttyā. Saha, the yogi, api, moreover, etayā, by this, caramayā, ultimate, manasaḥ, of the mind, nivṛttyā, by cessation of material reaction, tasmin, in his, mahimni, ultimate glory, avasitaḥ, situated, sukha-duḥkha-bāhye, outside of happiness and distress, hetutvam, the cause, api, indeed, asati, a product of ignorance, kartari, in the false ego, duḥkhayoḥ, of pleasure and pain, yat, which, sva-ātman, to his own self, vidhatte, he attributes, upalabdha, realized, para-ātma, of the personality of Godhead, kāṣṭhaḥ, the highest truth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thus situated in the highest transcendental stage, the mind ceases from all material reaction and becomes situated in its own glory, transcendental to all material conceptions of happiness and distress. At that time, the yogi realizes the truth of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He discovers that pleasure and pain, as well as their interactions, which he attributed to his own self, are actually due to the false ego, which is a product of ignorance. Please repeat. Thus situated in the highest transcendental stage, the mind ceases from all material reaction and becomes situated in its own glory, transcendental to all material conceptions of happiness and distress. At that time, the yogi realizes the truth of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He discovers that pleasure and pain, as well as their interactions, which he attributed to his own self, are actually due to the false ego, which is a product of ignorance. Purport. Forgetfulness of one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a product of ignorance. By yoga practice, one can eradicate this ignorance of thinking oneself independent of the Supreme Lord. One's actual relationship is eternally that of love. The living entity is meant to render transcendental loving service to the Lord. Forgetfulness of that sweet relationship is called ignorance, and in ignorance, one is impelled by the three material modes of nature to think himself the enjoyer. When the devotee's mind is purified and he understands that his mind has to be dovetailed with the desires of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has attained the perfectional, transcendental stage, which is beyond the perception of material distress and happiness. As long as one acts on his own account, he is subject to all the material perceptions of so-called happiness and distress. Actually, there is no happiness. Just as there is no happiness in any of the activities of a madman, so in material activities, the mental concoctions of happiness and distress are false. Actually, everything is distress. When the mind is dovetailed to act according to the desire of the Lord, one has attained the transcendental stage. The desire to lord it over material nature is the cause of ignorance, and when that desire is completely extinguished and the desires are dovetailed with those of the Supreme Lord, one has reached the perfectional stage. Upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. Upalabdha means realization. Realization necessarily indicates individuality. In the perfectional, liberated stage, there is actual realization. Nivṛttyā means that the living entity keeps his individuality. Oneness means that he realizes happiness in the happiness of the Supreme Lord. I'll repeat that again. In the perfectional, liberated stage, there is actual realization. Nivṛttyā means that the living entity keeps his individuality. Oneness means that he realizes happiness in the happiness of the Supreme Lord. In the Supreme Lord, there is nothing but happiness. Ānandamayo-bhyāsāt. The Lord is by nature full of transcendental happiness. In the liberated stage, oneness with the Supreme means that one has no realization other than happiness. But the individual still exists. Otherwise, this word upalabdha, indicating individual realization of transcendental happiness, would not have been used. Om ajñānatimirandhasya jñānanjana-shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Gurung Shri Yutapada Kamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitangtang Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhang Vitangscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Pika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhayeva cha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premo Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Gaura Tushe Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sopetaya caramayā manaso nivṛttyā tasmin mahimny avasitaḥ sukha-duḥkha-bāhye hetutvam asati kartari duḥkhayor svātman vidhatta upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. Thus situated in the highest transcendental stage, the mind ceases from all material reaction and becomes situated in its own glory, transcendental to all material conceptions of happiness and distress. At that time, the yogi realizes the truth of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He discovers that pleasure and pain, as well as their interactions, which he attributed to his own self, are actually due to the false ego, which is a product of ignorance. So, thank you all for coming to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're currently reading the 3rd canto, 28th chapter, and we're in the 36th verse. Before I start giving my 2 cents on this verse, I would like to beg for mercy and forgiveness. Mercy that I may be able to speak something in the line of Shastra, Guru, and Krishna. And please forgive me if whatever I say doesn't make sense. I haven't spoken the Bhagavatam in a very long time. It's kind of rusty, so please forgive me and correct me if you find anything that I say is wrong. So in this particular verse, actually in this series of verses that Kapila Dev is speaking to his mother Devahuti, he's talking about the evolution of the consciousness of a yogi. And in this particular verse, that is the final stage that the yogi reaches. And it's caramayā. This is what is called caramayā. This stage is, it's almost there, it's almost near perfection and almost near completion. And what happens when one gets to this stage of almost perfection? And this is what the verse talks about. This is what Kapila Deva is describing. So, caramayā manaso nivṛttyā, the first line of the verse says that in this stage, the mind finally ceases. Caramayā manaso nivṛttyā. Nivṛttyā means ceases. And not that in this case the mind doesn't stop working, as in like mind stops working, you can't think or anything, as such many philosophers do. It means that the mind stops working materially. It stops having all sorts of material desires, conceptions, thoughts, philosophies, anything. All of that comes to an end. All of that nonsense is uprooted when one gets to this perfection, stage of perfection. And then tasmin mahimny avasitaḥ. In that way, this yogi, he resides in his own glory. And then he finally understands his own position, mahimni, his importance or the value of his position. That's what the yogi is able to understand. And in sukha-duḥkha-bāhye, he realizes that all of these dualities of this world, the happiness, the distress, the cold, the heat, the summer, the winter, these are all dualities of the material world. And he's not actually affected by any of it. He just thinks he is. And then svātman vidhatta. He realizes that, like I said just now, all the happiness he was and distress that he was realizing, that is the cause. The cause for all of that is his false ego, and which is called kartari in this verse, as Prabhupada translates, and which gives the sense that I am the doer, I am the cause of of everything that's happening, I am controlling this and controlling that. But it is this mentality or doership, kartari, that has caused that the reason for this kartari or this false ego is because of his ignorance of his own true position, and that is called asati. So this being on the platform of asati, not able to understand what he is, what he truly is, he's acting on the platform of a false ego. And that's why he suffers sukha and dukkha and other dualities in the material world. But once he understands once he gets to this stage and understands his own true position, mahimni, then he understands that this upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ, he understands his true relationship with the Supreme Lord, with para-ātma in this case, because the final realization of a yogi, this is a general statement, is that they realize that Paramatma resides in their heart and they can think of Paramatma while doing their meditation. So this is a relationship that the yogi can achieve when they reach this almost final stage of perfection. So, thus situated in the highest transcendental stage, which is called caramayā, the mind ceases from all material reaction, called manasaḥ nivṛttyā, and becomes situated in its own glory, tasmin avasitaḥ, which is transcendental to all material conceptions of happiness and distress, sukha-duḥkha-bāhye. At that time, the yogi realizes the truth of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. He discovers that pleasure and pain, as well as their interaction, duḥkhayor, which he attributed to his own self, sva-ātman vidhatta, are actually due, hetutvam, to the false ego, kartari, which is a product of ignorance, asati. So everyone understood what the verse is saying, the simple translation of the verse? Okay. Anyone didn't understand? No? Okay, wonderful. So it just, like I said, this verse shows the experience of, or shows what the yogi is experiencing and how he's situated on a transcendental level, and also how he sees the material world. He understands that all the dualities of happiness, distress, heat, cold, summer, winter, everything, was due to his false ego. And when he understands that, he understands that he was not actually suffering, but he thought he was suffering. But due to his current understanding, he comes to the position of happiness and understands his true position, that he's a part of Krishna. So, and this is his glory. So, this wonderful description of Kapila Dev for the past few verses is going to be coming to an end soon, and this is one of the penultimate verses. And Srila Prabhupada does an excellent job translating the verse from its complexities and making it simple for us to understand in simple English. Because the hidden gems of Shastra are, in modern day, they're really hidden with Sanskrit, because most of us don't know Sanskrit, we can't understand the words, but Prabhupada has made it so easy for us to understand what the Shastra is trying to say with their wonderful verses. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says that as long as one acts on his own account, he is subject to all material perceptions of so-called happiness and distress. Actually, there is no happiness. Just as there is no happiness in any of the activities of a madman, so in material activities, the mental concoctions of happiness and distress are false. Actually, everything is distress. So, when I was reading this particular two sentences, I realized that I just experienced something like this very recently. When I was in Europe a few weeks ago, I traveled to Rome and Paris, and there's so much history in those two cities, and there's so much culture, and so many wonderful buildings. Why don't we see more of this nowadays? Why are we building skyscrapers? Why aren't we building this wonderful marble buildings with fine jewelry hanging, art, decorated ceilings with artwork and whatnot? It's because the people who were constructing this, the emperors and the kings like Caesar and Napoleon, they at that time thought that they were the doer. They thought that they were the cause of everything. They thought that everything around them, whatever they see, belongs to them. And due to this misconception, all of what they created stayed, but they weren't there to enjoy all of that. And it just goes to show that this is a madman's philosophy that everything around me is being caused by me, that I am the cause of everything, which is absolutely nonsensical because you are controlled at every single step of your life. To even sit down and listen to this, you require the permission of so many demigods to blink your eye, to hold your chin with your hand, for me to speak. Everything is controlled by the 33 million demigods. So how can we ever think that we are in control of anything? Duryodhana in the Mahabharata also thought that he was in control of everything. He thought, despite the numerous warnings, the numerous advices given to him by his elders, by Krishna himself, he still thought that he could change the outcome of the war. He thought he could control the outcome, he could change the outcome. He even tried to chain Krishna. He tried to tie Krishna with steel and steel chains. Of course he failed, and he died at the end in a very painful way, because that's how the time factor controls anyone who thinks that they are the doer. So there's numerous examples like this throughout Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it just goes to show that under the waves of material nature, the time factor and karma, the living entity continuously thinks that he's a doer, he's the controller, he's the proprietor. And that's why he suffers all the diseases, all the pains, and all the miseries of a madman. Because madmen, when they think that they're not mad, then they suffer the results of being mad. So they're unable to distinguish reality from illusion. And that's why they are suffering the dualities of so many things in this material world. In the same way, we see that there are so many titles that are going on around the world. Like recently there was the Grammys that were presented for music, best composer, best female artist, so many things. In the same way, we see for movies, they give awards for best actor, best director, best new debutant, so many things. But all these people, they fail to realize that Krishna is the best actor, he's the best director, he's the best dressed, and he's the most good looking. So how can we give each other titles or awards saying that you are the most good looking, you are the best actor, and all these things? Krishna is glorified by, what is it, by Bhishma Dev? Or Kunti Devi, by Kunti Devi, Natayor. That, wait, there's a dancer. Natayor's dancer, right? What's the one with the actor? Nataraj's dancer, but then what's the one with the actor, where he's the actor in Kunti Devi's prayers? Nato Natadharo Yataha. So Krishna is that actor who is constantly deceiving us at every single step of our life. Not the devotees, but people in general who haven't taken shelter of him. They're constantly made to think that whatever they're doing, whatever they're composing is the best. All these people, they think that if they compose something and it gets a few likes on social media or by their friends or family, they have achieved something special in their life. And Krishna, he, through his yoga maya, naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavitaha. Through that yoga maya, he keeps everyone in illusion. So how is it possible that we can experience when we're thinking in this miserable platform of life? And because they don't accept Krishna's glories and Krishna's true, the time factor simply sweeps them away into oblivion. And this transcendental conception of life that Dave is speaking about, that once a soul gets to that position, tasmin avasitaḥ, when he gets to the avasitaḥ, then Krishna explains how that devotee can see the material world. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, the 12th chapter, that amnekshapaha shuchir daksha udasino gata vyataha sarvambha parityagi yo mad bhakta same priyaha. He says, anapekshaha shuchir daksha. He becomes indifferent. He becomes completely indifferent to success and failure, to heat, cold, happiness, distress, all these things. Udasina, he becomes indifferent. No distress can touch him at that point. All his perceptions of duality disappear, and he ends up in transcendence. And sarvambha parityagi, he becomes completely independent of all the course of activities. Like whatever he was doing before was controlling him, all the activities. But once he gets to this transcendental stage, he's not bothered by those activities. He's not bothered by the heat, the cold, and all those things. And then Krishna says that such a soul is very dear to me. So this is how the transcendental vision looks like, and this is how this is what Krishna is expecting us to feel, to understand, to experience, to achieve, to practice, to imbibe, to live, all these things. And now we might say, well, that's Krishna's view. What about my view? I want to see the world like this. But the thing is, when we see things different from Krishna, we are not in Krishna consciousness. That becomes my consciousness. But we're not trying to achieve my consciousness, because my consciousness is controlled by no, that's the cause. What is it controlled by? Three modes. What else? No, that's the cause. What is it controlled by? No. Kala, karma, and the time factor, the karma, and the modes of nature. Those three things. So these three things are constantly controlling us. But once we see things from Krishna's perspective, once we see things in Krishna consciousness, then all of these three things that have been troubling us our whole lives, they disappear. And even if they don't disappear, we get the strength to tolerate them. It's not necessary that just because one comes into Krishna consciousness, all of these miseries of material life will stop immediately. They will continue, but we will get the tolerance to deal with them. And this is and basically Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter, Nacha mantani karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya udasina vadasinam asaktang teshu karmasu. This udasina vadasinam, I am not attached to anything, I am completely indifferent. So if that's Krishna's position, then he expects us to also get to that position. And when the yogi or devotee gets to this position, then he can attain the Krishna consciousness vision that Krishna wants him to attain. And in a world full of so many billions and billions, trillions of perspectives, every soul practically has its own perspective. And everyone thinks that he's a philosopher or a muni, and he thinks that his philosophy is better than the other person's philosophy, and that his philosophy is the only one that should be accepted. But in actuality, that's not the case, because all of this is coming from one's mental conception, and by the influence of the modes of material nature, one is coming up with all these conceptions. But there is this absolute conception of life, which is the Krishna consciousness platform, which is so perfect, which is so clear, which is so wonderful, that it makes the devotee's life so wonderful when he aligns his vision with Krishna's vision. Then all of this degradation of the living entity that he was proceeding towards comes to an end. His life becomes actually meaningful. And then he attains this upalabdha, this happiness that did not exist before. Now it starts to exist. What was that? Upalabdha? I forgot the... upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. So this upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ, he attains simply by aligning his view with Krishna's view. Now, one may ask, how can we know about this view of Krishna? I have my view, I think that's good enough, why should I take to Krishna's view? But the thing is, if we want to become dear to Krishna, then we have to listen to what Krishna is saying and wanting from us and demanding from us. And it's not like he's just vaguely has said something and it's out there somewhere that we have to go ponder upon. No, he says it clearly in the Bhagavad Gita. His devotees reiterate that in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then again, he comes as a devotee. He incarnates himself as a devotee, and he shows us how to live the words of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita as Lord Mahaprabhu. So that's the point of the scriptures. And like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarved aham eva vedya, Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. That through the Vedas I am to be known. I am the compiler and I am the knower of the Vedas. So this is the reason why scriptures exist. This is why Vedas were spoken by the Lord to Lord Brahma. And that's why we are supposed to read the scriptures. We're supposed to understand what they're saying. And Prabhupada has spent numerous hours, blood, sweat, tears, everything to give us the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, and volumes of other books. I can't even count how many there are. There's so many. And it's because of this causeless mercy of Krishna and his pure devotees that we're able to understand this true perspective of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we would just be doing our jnane prayasam tapasya namanta eva. We would simply be trying to understand Krishna through our false and useless speculative methods, through our so-called knowledge that we don't really understand. But Krishna, through the scriptures, he brings that speculative method of understanding Krishna to an end. And this is the position that one attains. This upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ, that position is our actual glory. We may think that we have become so glorious by the service we perform, by achieving so many of our goals in life. None of that matters. The only glory of our life is that we are part and parcel of Krishna. Mamai vangshu jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. This relationship that each living entity has is its only glory. The living entity otherwise has no glory. It is, if the living entity was not part and parcel of Krishna, A, he would not be living, B, he'd be useless. He'd just be a table and chair. Even the table and chair has Krishna inside it. That's amazing. But the table and chair is not connected to Krishna personally. We are. So it is our duty and it is our eternal position to attain this understanding that we are part and parcel of Krishna, and that without Krishna, without this connection to Krishna, we are nothing. We have no worth. And it's this identity that makes us who we are. It makes us part and parcel of Krishna. It makes us dear to Krishna. And this identity can be realized in this age by only one simple method, and that's Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalau nasti eva, nasti eva, nasti eva gatir anyatha. The chanting of the holy names is the only way, and only way. And work, we have no point and no time to waste on that. We should simply take to chanting of the holy names, as we're all doing on a daily basis. Some through their japa, some through Harinam, and some through their service and japa at the same time. Whatever works for you works, but don't stop chanting. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? I tried to finish early so we could all leave early. It's Monday. Any questions? Yep. Let's say it. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Prabhu. Mm. Yeah. Well, what kind of offense are you committing depends on that. Because there's three kinds of offenses, right? There's offenses to the mind, offenses to the words, and then offenses to actions. So, are you talking about offenses within the mind? Mm-hmm. Right. Because that's not the complete truth. You there's probably that's a long question. The basic of what he's asking is Mayavadis say that everything is illusion, so why does it matter whether you're doing good or bad? Good or bad action is a product of the illusion of the mind. That's what the Mayavadis believe. So, how is it different when devotees say that? How is this concept of manasa nivṛttyā different from what the Mayavadis say? Did anyone understand the question? I'm still trying to process the question. Prabhupada, the way Prabhupada translates it in this verse, he says, manasa nivṛttyā is cessation of material reaction within the mind. So this conception of everything being illusion around you, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, this is their philosophy. But the basis of the philosophy is false. So when your whole understanding is based on something false, how can whatever you're thinking after that be true? The devotee's philosophy is not that Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. Brahma Satya, Jagat also Satya. Both are Satya. Because whatever is coming from the Brahman, Supreme Brahman, has to be true. Because he is true, so everything that coming from him is also true. Krishna cannot create anything that's not true. He's absolute. There is no duality in him. When he creates something, it is as it is. He creates the material world for us to enjoy and then go back to him eventually. The Mayavadis think the material world is created and Krishna is part of the material world. He comes as a creation of the material world. But that's not true. We know from the Bhagavad Gita that he says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. He's a source of everything, both spiritual and material. So this concept of everything is illusion, I am also an illusion, doesn't really work. We are an illusion, yes, but not everything is illusion. This is a TV. It's a fact. TV will not merge into Krishna and become Krishna. TV is not God. In the same way, I cannot merge into Krishna and become God. When we do that, then we will stay in his effulgence for I don't know how long. And that's what he says in the last line of this verse, Kapil Dev. Svātman vidhatta upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. Once this material conception is gone, is uprooted, then he realizes that his own self, his own glory is that he's part and parcel of Krishna. That's the understanding. Does it make sense? So the basis of philosophy, if it's nonsense, the philosophy is nonsense from the beginning. Yes, Prabhu. Sorry? A little louder. What? When we, well, how I understood from Prabhupada's lectures is that everything around us is an illusion because we are in our condition of existence in this material world is that of compared to a dream. When we see things from the perspective of I am, then that becomes illusion. But when we see things from the position of Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam as Krishna, then this is reality. Because I'm using this for Krishna. But when I think that, yes, this TV exists, but it's for me, I'm going to use it for my enjoyment, then that's our illusion there. That's one part. And the other part is, this is Krishna's external energy. Why would it be false? This theory that you just spoke about, I've never heard Prabhupada say that. So we as ISKCON initiated devotees or ISKCON aspirants of this movement, we should listen to what Prabhupada has said. And not once has Prabhupada said that we can never fall down from the spiritual world. We have fallen down. He said it numerous times in his books. But at the same time, I believe that this is because of people not reading Prabhupada's books enough. So I think they should go back to reading their Prabhupada's books and understand what he's actually saying. Because he writes in very simple English. He doesn't use complicated words. He has even made some very normal phrases, outdated phrases, famous, like mundane wranglers, all these things. So Prabhupada has created a own version of English that is transcendental to regular English. So if you just read his books, this concept, the second, whatever alternate theory that we have in ISKCON will dissipate, and we'll stick to what Prabhupada said, because he is our founder acharya, he is our leader, and he is the one who has showed us this upalabdha-parātma-kāṣṭhaḥ. Without him, we would not have realized our own glory. We were all worthless and useless prior to coming to this movement. And Prabhupada has made us useful and worth something. So let's make use of that worth. Yes? Right. Yeah. And Prabhupada also talks about oneness in the purport of this verse in the last two sentences. He says, in the liberated stage, oneness with the Supreme Lord means that one has no realization other than happiness. But the individual still exists, otherwise this word upalabdha, or individual realization of transcendental happiness, would not have been used. So yeah, we can accommodate what Radhika Raman Prabhu said, that completely works. But at the same time, the Mayavadi philosophy is wrong. And we should not really try to accommodate that. We should see it from what oneness actually means. If you understand the proper thing. Because you have to understand what oneness means. Oneness means that Krishna's happiness is your happiness, not that you become Krishna. So Mayavadis think the latter, not the first one. So, and yeah. Any other questions? Concerns? Comments? No? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees ki jai. Someone please turn off the live stream, please. Brahman Satya Jagan Mithya. It's from the Vedanta Sutras. Vedanta Sutras. Our dear